Welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. At the core of any political campaign is the message, what it's about. What exactly are next Tuesday's midterm elections about? Well, on the one side, it's pretty clear. Donald Trump, who's the leader of the Republican Party and in effect its only spokesman, says that a vote for Republican candidates is a vote for secure borders and against crime and chaos. You don't have to believe the president when he says this, but that's definitely what Republicans are running on. What are Democrats running on? That's less clear. Against Trump, certainly. Democrats talk about the president even more than he talks about himself, which is a lot. They don't like him at all. Fine. But despising someone isn't really a platform or a path forward. At best, it's a reaction. What are the ideas that unite the Democratic Party right now? Well, for the answer to that, we go to the other cable stations, which over the past couple of years have come to function much as the DNC used to function, as the Democratic Party's brain trust and mouthpiece. If you want to know what Democrats are thinking, watch CNN and MSNBC. Last night was especially instructive. Here are two contributors to MSNBC. One writes for the New York Times, the other is a professor at Princeton, which is an Ivy League college in New Jersey. Both have impressive credentials. Both are considered deep thinkers by most of the other people in this country who think of themselves as intellectuals. Watch as they explain what they've learned since the 2016 election.
What I did wrong in 2016 is I overestimated white people. I didn't think white people would put him in office.
I'm not willing to let white voters off the hook. I think that they, like the rest of us, should be treated as adults. And I think that there are a large number, I would say a majority of white Americans in this country who are not just Democrats, but who are people of conscience, who are good Americans. And I believe that they need to move from saying, well, I don't like his tweets, but, you know, the economy's doing okay. They need to move from there to reality, which is that we have a white nationalist president who's a threat to American democracy.
Now, there was a time, not so long ago, just a few years ago, really, when language like this was considered textbook race hatred, even by liberal Democrats. You weren't allowed to blame entire races of people for anything. You weren't even supposed to think of your fellow Americans primarily in terms of their race, and skin color is one thing that nobody can control. To paraphrase a longtime liberal hero whose ideas are now ignored, what matters is the content of a person's character. But not anymore. Now, the opposite is true. Identity is everything. Here's CNN's Don Lemon on Monday night.
So we have to stop demonizing people and realize the biggest terror threat in this country is white men, most of them radicalized to the right. And we have to start doing something about them. There is no travel ban on them. There is no ban on, you know, they had the Muslim ban. There is no white guy ban. So what do we do about that?
We have to start doing something about them, these people of a certain skin color. That's what Don Lemon said. Now, before you get too outraged about that and stop watching his show every night, keep in mind that Don Lemon is a cable news host. He's on television 5 hours a week live. He's bound to say something indefensible once in a while. They all do. We can actually vouch for that, having done it ourselves, unfortunately. But here are the rules. When you say something awful that you can't defend, don't try to defend it. Apologize, explain what you meant, and move on. Vow to do better. That's a rule for life, not just television news. We all learned it as kids. On the left, though, it no longer applies. Here's what Don Lemon said last night about his remarks on Monday.
I said that the biggest terror threat in this country comes from radicals on the far right, primarily white men. That angered some people. Their analysis shows that for every 8 deadly attacks by right-wing extremists, there were 1 by left-wing extremists. Those are the facts. So people who were angered about what I said are missing the entire point. We don't need to worry about people who are thousands of miles away. The biggest threats are homegrown.
If you didn't like what I said, that's your problem. You'll notice the lack of contrition. When Don Lemon said, we have to start doing something about Americans of a certain skin color, turns out it wasn't a mistake. He meant that. He didn't apologize because nobody in his world asked him to. They're all saying pretty much the same thing. This is now a common view in the Democratic Party. It's one of the things they're running on. Now, lots of Americans won't like that message, obviously, but Democrats are not concerned about that. They no longer care what those Americans think. They've given up on trying to represent them, and that's why they fight harder to defend birthright citizenship for foreigners than they ever fought to protect American citizens from heroin or plunging middle-class wages or privacy-destroying tech monopolies. They know who their constituency is. That also explains their sudden sympathy for lawbreakers over everyone else. You already know about the Democrats' demand that America ignore its own immigration laws, but it's gone far beyond that. Elizabeth Warren, who's a senator from Massachusetts and is running for president in 2020, has condemned our entire criminal justice system as irredeemably racist. Meanwhile, the Hollywood Senate candidate Beto O'Rourke agrees with that. He's called our justice system, quote, the new Jim Crow. He accused cops of shooting people based on their skin color. Now, he offered no evidence that cops do shoot people just based on their skin color. He didn't need to because he just knows it's true. Meanwhile, Democratic cities around the country have decided that laws against crimes like shoplifting and public urination and others can no longer be enforced because that would be racist. Now, the result of all of this is inevitable. It's always the same everywhere. More crime. And you're already seeing that in many places. Turns out the victims are not cloistered rich people like Beto O'Rourke. They're normal people of all races. Crime hurts everyone, but it tends to hurt the poor the most. If that's occurred to Democrats, they haven't mentioned it. They're feeling good about themselves right now. They know they're likely to win back the House on Tuesday, and they're feeling vindicated, more self-righteous than ever. We searched long and hard today for a piece of tape that could sum up the Democratic worldview right now. And we found this. It was shot by a network cameraman covering the president's trip to the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh this week. The protester screaming at the president happens to be a Presbyterian minister. Watch.
It's not about you! Let the families grieve. This is our neighborhood. You are not welcome here. You don't belong here. This is our neighborhood. We welcome everybody here.
You're not welcome here. We welcome everybody. Well, that's pretty much the whole Democratic message right there. Will it work? Maybe on Tuesday, maybe for a little while. Angela Merkel tried it in Germany. So did the people who until recently ran Brazil. But ultimately, their countries rejected that message. Voters want you to care about them. It's their country. And they'll know it if you don't care about them. And in the end, they will punish you for that. They always do. Author and columnist Mark Steyn joins us tonight. You are not welcome here. We welcome everybody. It's almost like a haiku, and yet it does kind of explain the worldview.
Yes, and they're not aware of the contradiction. You said that these guys despise Trump, and that's true. But
Yes.
what they don't seem to realize is that despising Trump elides very quickly into despising tens of millions of your fellow Americans.
Exactly.
And I think people understand that that actually isn't the kind of country they want to move into. What a lot of these people seem to enjoy is the frisson of civil war on the cheap, as it were. In other words, you can divide yourself into warring tribes without actually having war, without actually torching and burning each other's villages. And they get a kick out of it. It's a sign of decadence, because normal politics, which are boring policy differences and not terribly exciting, are insufficient to them these days. So they want to have this kind of frisson that they're somehow living some epic primal life by yelling at the president from the streets in what is supposed to be some kind of dignified remembrance of 11 dead people. She should be ashamed of herself, that woman.
But she's not, and I think the Cedar warden at her church basically blamed everybody else but her. But I wonder if this kind of politics works. I mean, look, I don't think there's anything wrong with not liking a politician, even despising a politician. I've certainly felt that way. But when you say out loud that you hate his voters and you hate, almost half the country, and you prefer people from other countries, in the end, I don't think that works as a political message, does it?
No, I think that's how Trump became president, because there are tens of millions of just ordinary people who would switch on the TV during 2015 and they would see people not talking about anything that matters to them. Democrats were talking about fashionable niche constituencies that ordinary, boring white people in towns where the mills and factories had closed had barely heard of. And they couldn't understand why barely detectable demographics, like fine with gays, fine with transgenders, then we get to intersexuals. Most people have never even met an intersexual, questioning. They don't know what it is. They don't understand why these people matter, and tens of millions of ordinary Americans don't matter. They don't understand why foreigners who simply want to walk into your country have more rights than people who were born here and have been citizens of the United States all their lives. That's how Trump came along. And Don Lemon and people don't realize that that they're partly responsible for Trump. Yeah. And so when he starts talking about white men being terrorists, the distinguishing feature of a terrorist is not that he's a white man. That's actually demonizing, as you say, half the country. But Don Lemon, they don't seem to have learned the lessons of the last 2 years. If you want more Trump, this is how you get more Trump.
Voters want leaders to behave as parents do with a family. You love your children. You don't love your stepchildren more. And if your kids know that you hate them, they're going to punish you in the end, I think. Anyway, thank you very much, Mark Steyn. Very wise.
Thanks a lot, Tucker. Thank you.
Great to see you. Well, projection is, of course, a defining fact of the modern left. On virtually every issue, they attack their opponents as what they are. They call them racist, even as they denounce half the country for its skin color. Kansas gubernatorial candidate Chris Kobach is the latest person to learn that lesson the hard way. Over at CNN, Jeffrey Toobin says that because he dislikes Kobach's views, Kobach is, of course, a bigot. Here's part of it.
Chris has devoted his career to stopping black people and poor people from voting. I mean, that's been your goal for decades.
That is an outrageous accusation.
Well, it's completely true.
That is an absolutely outrageous accusation.
I mean,
so if you like photo ID, you're trying to stop people of color from voting?
Absolutely.
That is outrageous.
Absolutely.
Chris Kobach joins us tonight. Chris, thanks a lot for coming on. So, is there an argument that, and we've done this topic a couple of times, but I don't fully understand it. So the idea is what you just said. If you're trying to make certain that people vote legally and ask for ID, that's an act of bigotry. What is flesh out that argument, if you would? I don't understand it.
The argument itself is a racist one. The argument is that somehow because of your skin color, you are less likely to have in your wallet a photo ID, or you're less likely to be able to go to a government office and get a free photo ID. It's a ridiculous argument. It's been disproven empirically in state after state. But the hard left, and now increasingly the entire left, keeps making the argument. And you know, Tucker, I went into that debate, that program, thinking we were going to have a cordial debate about birthright citizenship. But as soon as Jeffrey Toobin started losing the argument, he just out of the blue says, well, you've devoted your career to stopping people of color from voting. It's crazy.
You're a bad person.
It just showed
Shut
how
up.
weak.
But I wonder why, I mean, since ID is required for everything. I mean, you can't cash your paycheck. You can't get on an airplane. You can't stay in a hotel or rent a car. I mean, you can't get into buildings without an ID. So why does no one ever call those laws racist, I wonder?
Well, because maybe they aren't racist, and maybe it's not racist for your bank to insist on an ID when you cash a check. But of course, they pull this out of nowhere, and they don't realize the inconsistency that you just pointed out, and that my 12-year-old daughter could have pointed out to them. They just, you know, it must be racist. Never mind that it's an incoherent statement.
I wonder, I mean, this is probably not the first time you've been attacked this way, and the presumption is that the person attacking you knows what you think, because somehow has X-ray vision and can see your heart, and knows what your feelings are, which is insane. But beyond that, it has kind of short-circuited a rational conversation about the integrity of our elections, hasn't it?
It absolutely has. I mean, now even to suggest that voter fraud exists, which it does, and we've prosecuted many cases in my office as Secretary of State in Kansas, to even suggest that it exists is racist, just like they've short-circuited the immigration debate. If you want to enforce our laws, you must be a racist. If you want to stop the caravan, you must be a racist. I mean, it just cuts off the debate completely when you attack the person making the other argument.
I tried to buy Sudafed for my kids a couple years ago at CVS, and they wouldn't sell it to me because I didn't have an ID. I'm waiting for people to picket CVS for its racist Sudafed policy. Do you think that'll happen?
Don't hold your breath.
It's unbelievable. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Well, Democrats in North Dakota are trying to save incumbent Senator Heidi Heitkamp by telling hunters not to vote. Good luck with that. We've got details in that and the other big political stories as the midterms approach us after the break. Well, fewer than 120 hours remain before the polls close in the 2018 midterm elections. We are counting. It's getting zany out there. In one state, Democrats are trying to discourage hunters from voting. In another, the pro-abortion lobby is telling us that abortion is good for kids. To help investigate these stories and several midterm races, Lisa Booth, the Independent Women's Voice, is back with us, as she has been most nights for a long time. Great to see you, Lisa. So
good to see you. Sometimes I can't believe some of this stuff is real, but
it always gets crazier as we get closer. Hunters shouldn't vote. Tell me about this story.
Right. So as you know, North Dakota is Republicans' best pickup opportunity this election cycle for the Senate. The Republican there, Kevin Cramer, has been up about 11.4% in the real clear politics average. So it looks like the Democrat Party is trying to pull out all the stops to make up some ground. So they have been running ads on Facebook saying Hunter Alert. And basically what these ads are telling voters is that if you vote this election cycle, you may lose your out-of-state hunting license. And if you click on these ads, they basically take you to either the Democrat Party's website that is essentially reiterating the same thing, or a landing page on Facebook that just has the logos. And why this is important, the Department of Game and Fishing, they've reached out to them, and they've essentially said that they have no idea what the Democrat Party of North Dakota is talking about. The Secretary of State has said the same thing, and Heidi Heitkamp had actually transferred almost $3 million to the Democrat Party of North Dakota. So she had maybe partially paid for these ads. And the State Party of North Dakota for the Republicans are criticizing Democrats, obviously, for voter suppression. So they've been under a lot of fire for these ads.
Pretty hard to intimidate voters, I mean, hunters. How great that they're a meaningful constituency in the state. So tell me, of all the Orwellian things I've heard recently, and I've heard a lot, war is peace, love is hate, I mean, you hear it every day, but abortion is good for kids. This is the case that the official abortion lobby, the industry lobby, NARAL, is now making?
Yeah, so that's what they're making. So essentially what they did is they sent out this tweet saying the research is clear, restricting abortion access doesn't just hurt women, it also hurts kids. And what they do is link to an LA Times report about a research done from a demographer out of the University of California, San Francisco. And the argument that this woman is making in her research is that 60% of women have children that have abortions, and 1/3 of them have abortions because of the children that they already have. So somehow the children they already have are going to end up in poverty or be disadvantaged if this woman is not allowed an abortion.
If they have siblings.
My reminder to them, or my message to them would be, you know, maybe if they want to help children, they should get out of the abortion business.
No, it's one of those studies like, no, carjacking helps drivers. No, it really does. It's just you're not smart enough to understand how. Lisa, thank you.
Thank you,
to see you tonight. Dana Perino hosts the Daily Briefing. She's on the 5 every night. One of our favorite people, and always flies at 35,000 feet, and is the person we go to for the overview. So what is this series of races? Not one election, obviously, it's many elections. But what are the main themes on both sides as of tonight, would you say?
Well, I would say the closing arguments, if you really just had to boil it down, you saw President Trump today in the Roosevelt Room, and I think chosen that site for a very specific reason. He was wanting to give a policy-specific speech, not a rally. He wanted to talk about immigration. So that is what he has decided is going to be his closing argument going into Tuesday. Democrats, on the other hand, are talking about health care, and it could help them win back the House because, you know, the Republicans ran on it in 2010, 2012, 2014, 2016. They won it all, and they didn't deliver on what they said they would do. And I think the Republicans have missed an opportunity to talk more about health care because, believe me, the Democrats are not just going to talk about it in 2018. This is going to be a major topic in 2020. Their policy, Medicare for all, not that popular. In a popular vote, however, if you ask people if they want single-payer health care, Obamacare more popular today than it was at any other time previously. We have a serious problem in this country. We could have two conversations, one about immigration and one about health care, but we better start having them quickly.
People are terrified by the cost of their health care. And we
Yes,
can
they are.
debate the solutions, but if
Right.
you ignore that, I agree with you. I agree with you completely. and
Because
should
they
be
think
terrified.
about it personally. Like, it is true. Chuck Blahhouse, over at the Mercatus Center, he did the study. $32 trillion to pay for Medicare for all. That's a huge number, and Republicans keep driving that home. But you know what? If you're an individual, you're a family member, you're thinking, well, $32 trillion, you can't get your head around that. But I do know that if I get sick, maybe my business doesn't help me pay for health care. What if I end up going bankrupt because of my medical bills? That stuff is very real, and I think the
Right.
Democrats knew that from the beginning, and they have singularly focused on that. They will not talk about border security. They are focused on health care 100%
Right.
to the Republicans' detriment.
So do you think, look, I personally think, speaking for myself as a non-economist, that Medicare for All is insane and it won't work. However, I also watch the Republicans who seem duty-bound to defend insurance companies and drug companies, and I'm wondering, how long is that going to last? Will you see Republicans strike a middle ground? Like, you don't have to toe the line of the insurance companies.
It's possible, but President Trump last week, the administration put forward this idea of having the government basically put price controls on pharmaceutical drugs.
That's right.
Lots of European countries do that. I think it's a terrible idea, and I think you'll see conservatives say, wait, we're not actually for that because it hasn't worked elsewhere, but it sounds good, right? It's quite popular. And maybe they'll be able to make that case. Let's just say that the Democrats take back the House. Is Nancy Pelosi going to pass on an opportunity to put price controls on pharmaceutical drugs if President Trump is offering that? I mean, that would be quite remarkable if she doesn't want to do that. Just like, would they pass on the ability to give amnesty to the Dreamers and for a little bit of border security? I mean, I think Americans want some sort of compromise. But I got to tell you, Tucker, between 2018 and 2020, if both sides go into this closing argument on immigration and health care, and they both do okay, the Republicans keep the Senate, the Democrats take the House, what do you think people are going to run on in 2020?
Probably Trump.
The same thing. No, it'll be the same thing.
No,
It'll be
you're
more
probably right.
of the same, because nothing will get solved. It'll be immigration and health care. And also
Dana
Trump.
Perino, great to see you. Thank you for that
Thank you.
grim window into the future. President Trump trying to alter America's asylum policies to slow down illegal immigration. 22 million people here legally as of tonight. Just a quarter century ago, Democrats would have applauded that. A lot has changed. We'll tell you what after the break. Well, the president announced today that the administration plans to alter asylum policy in response to the approaching migrant caravan coming up from Central America. Under the new plan, people caught sneaking across the border illegally will not be allowed to claim asylum. That announcement comes shortly after the president suggested he may try eliminating birthright citizenship through an executive order. Now, amazingly, and we just learned this, the president's rhetoric on illegal immigration puts him in league with a well-known former Democratic Senate Majority Leader. That would be Harry Reid. Watch this.
If making it easy to be an illegal alien isn't enough, how about offering a reward for being an illegal immigrant? No sane country would do that, right? Guess again. If you break our laws by entering this country without permission and give birth to a child, we reward that child with U.S. citizenship and guarantee of full access to all public and social services this society provides. And that's a lot of services. Is it any wonder that 2/3 of the babies born at taxpayer expense at county-run hospitals in Los Angeles are born to illegal alien mothers?
Whoa. Oof, sorry about that. John Summers is former communications director for Harry Reid. He joins us tonight. John Summers, thank you very much for coming on.
Good to see you.
So have you disavowed that?
Well, Senator Reid certainly has. I mean, that was something back in 1993. In 1999, he came out and said, you know what, that was the wrong policy position to take, and I apologize for that, and he did that again in 2006. 1999, also coincidentally, the second time Donald Trump changed his voter registration, this time leaving the Republican Party and becoming
Right, well, I
independent.
mean, Trump was a Democrat, of course. I mean, I'm not high.
The point being that people can change and people can
Right.
grow.
Well, look, I agree. I've changed my mind on a million different things. But this is really a moral issue. I mean, I watch television, so I know this isn't a policy difference. That's a white supremacist position he was just articulating. So that means that he was immoral and therefore not allowed to meaningfully participate in public life. And yet he became the top Democrat in the Senate. How?
He, as I said, a few years later, disavowed that statement, said it was the wrong policy position to have. He reiterated that again in 2006.
Did other Democrats know that he had used the term illegal alien, said that birthright citizenship was wrong, they were scamming our system? I mean, what did they think of that? Did they whisper about it in the group?
I wasn't there in 1993, so I don't
when
know.
you weren't from, did
tell
people
you-
say, do you
but
know
I
that
can tell you,
the boss used the term illegal alien, like he's obviously a bigot?
Well, and a lot of people did at that time. That doesn't necessarily make it right, but that was a term that a lot of people used at the time. The more important thing is that he took the right positions and actually worked with Democrats and Republicans to actually try and pass comprehensive immigration
But
reform.
what changed? I
5
wonder
years
what
ago,
changed. So
we were actually able to do it, and the House decided to say
Well, I
no.
wouldn't
And
say it's
that bill-
comprehensive
And
immigration
that bill even
reform.
had $46 billion in it
But
for
it's
border
all
security.
fake, and that's why there are 22 million illegals living in our country right now. So the whole thing is fake.
I think the estimate is actually 12 million, but either way,
No,
there are too
the
many.
estimate was revised by academics from Yale and MIT 3 weeks ago.
From the Trump administration, it's 12 million.
Yeah,
we should
I'm just saying the most accurate estimate that we know of, the most modern, is about 22 or more. But here's the point. I don't understand what changed. So he makes a pretty tight, rational argument there for denying rewards to people who knowingly break our laws. That seems fair. I mean, common sense would tell you that's not a bad idea. Why did he change his mind?
He got to a place where he started to better understand the stories of the people who are struggling, people who we're hearing about coming up in this caravan, who hopefully will use the legal methods to come in and claim asylum for those who choose to do that. So I think he had a better understanding, and that's what leaders do, though, Tucker. They grow and they learn and they apologize for when they're wrong. Something that our current president won't do.
I used to support abortion and the death penalty in the Iraq War, so I know a lot about changing your views. Okay. I used to think everything the Chamber of Commerce said was right. So I've changed my views on everything. I completely agree and I admire that. But I also think it's fair to ask when someone said I changed my views to ask why, specifically why. What did you learn that you didn't know? So he said if people break the law, you shouldn't reward them. And if you do, it's an incentive for more people to break the law. Does he no longer believe that?
And this is where spouses actually come in. And after he made that speech, his wife, Landra, sat him down and said, you know, my father is an immigrant. What you said there was wrong. Your position is wrong.
But why is it wrong?
And that's where he gradually...
Okay, so his wife didn't like it. Okay, I get it. But what... No, but help us out so the rest of us can change our views if there's some good reason to. What was the fact that changed his mind? He no longer thinks that rewarding illegal behavior encourages more of it?
Again, it's understanding the stories of the people who are involved.
But what does
and
that mean?
understanding,
That it's going to help
understanding
America?
the history of the 14th Amendment, which, by the way, I mean, it sounds to me like you're actually in favor of Congress being able to decide who gets to be a citizen and who doesn't get to be a citizen. Because that's what the 14th Amendment was established to do. Prevent Congress from deciding who can actually be a resident.
No.
Or a
14th
citizen.
Amendment was added 3 years after the end of the Civil War to enfranchise African Americans and to acknowledge what was already true, which is that they're citizens. It was not designed to allow illegals to be rewarded for coming here illegally. But I just want to know, did he conclude...
And if you take away the 14th Amendment that says if you're born in this country, you're a citizen, you take that away, then someone else gets to make that decision.
No one is arguing for
and the
taking it
14th
away.
Amendment was designed to take that away from
Can you just ask
Congress.
this one question? Did Harry Reid conclude, have you concluded, have Democrats concluded, that it's good for America to have people come here illegally and have kids here? Is that, honestly, are you making that case?
No, I'm not making that case at all.
What case are you
I think
making?
what
I'm
we're talking
confused.
about, what you asked about his changing views, what the case that we're talking about now is if you've got people who are coming in who are subverting the law, not living up to its intent, then that's something we've got to address. But we have to do it well, we have to do it in a legal way. Unfortunately for Donald Trump, he's not king, so he can't do it all by executive order. He's actually going to have to do it through the legal process.
Because everyone acts like it's only Central Americans. Birth tourism is really a phenomenon of upper income people from China and Russia. So you okay with people coming? Russia's our mortal enemy. We're at war with them, according to the Democrats. You're cool with Russians coming here and having their kids to...
No, I actually just told you where I stand. It's the law. So
it's
if
the law.
if we don't like it, then let's change the law.
So would you agree that you're not necessarily a racist if you oppose it? Because that's the position. You're a racist if you're against having Russians scam the system to get citizenship. Am I a racist?
I think I don't think you're a racist. No.
Okay, thank you. I've been absolved of sin by you, and I appreciate it. John Summers, great to see you, as always. A women's shelter in Anchorage may have to shut down because it will only admit women. That's next. President, by the way, in Missouri right now at a rally. If news happens, we'll be there instantly, of course.
And Josh said it. I won by 20 points. I know the people. I know the people.
Well, a women's shelter in Anchorage, Alaska may have to close its doors because it wants to admit only women who are, in fact, biologically female. The Hope Center is currently being investigated by the city of Anchorage for allegedly violating the city's transgender non-discrimination law. In response to this, the center has sued. They say the law infringes on religious freedom. Kate Anderson is senior counsel to the Alliance Defending Freedom, which is representing the Hope Center, and she joins us tonight. Thanks so much for coming on. So are we misstating that? Here you have a women's shelter that says we just want to admit women. What is their argument for why they should be allowed to do that?
Well, the Hope Center's women's shelter exists to serve women and women who have been abused, women who have suffered domestic violence, sex trafficking, some of the most horrible abuse imaginable. And so to protect those women's privacy and their safety and allow them to heal, the Hope Center keeps their center women's only. But Anchorage is trying to force the Hope Center to allow biological men in to sleep next to these women.
So, I mean, I'm a little confused. Where are all the people who make a living defending women, are always telling us they're defenders of women? Have they weighed in? Why is this being left to you?
I don't know, but it's so important. I have spoken to some of the women at the shelter, and they tell me the emotional and physical consequences for them if they run into a biological man where they're sleeping. And this all started because an individual who is male but identifies as female came to the shelter wanting to spend the night. He was intoxicated, he was clearly injured, and so the Hope Center paid for his taxi and sent him to the hospital to get the care that he needed. But because they didn't let him into the shelter, Anchorage is now after the Hope Center.
I'm just confused. Like Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, I mean, her whole life revolves around protecting women. Here you have a shelter for battered women, abused women, that could be shut down by a city. Has she ridden to the rescue and weighed in on this? Honestly.
I haven't heard anybody weighing in to the rescue here, but unfortunately, because of the laws in Anchorage, the Hope Center hasn't been able to speak out much until very recently about what's going on. But the work that they do is so important, and they work with other shelters in the area to try to care for all of the homeless. But their particular role in this is to provide this safe, secure place for women at night.
Very quick, and as honestly as you can tell us, do you think there's a chance they could be shut down over this?
What Anchorage wants to do is to put a biological male in the shelter with these women, and these women are sleeping in a room 3 to 5 feet from each other. And again, these are women who have suffered severe abuse. So that's very problematic and would effectively shut down and take away that safe place that the Hope Center has been able to provide.
When this lunacy started, I made 2 predictions. One was, this is going to hurt women, and nobody's going to say anything about it. And both have turned out to be true, except for you, Kate, who are saying something. So thank you.
I'm trying.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Time now for final exam. Can you beat the pros at remembering the weirdest things that happened this week? There were many, and that's after the break. And now for the happiest moment of the week. It's time for Final Exam, where we quiz the news professionals to see if they've been paying attention at work. This week's contestants, 2 of our top correspondents here at Fox, Chief National Correspondent Ed Henry and Washington Correspondent Jillian Turner. Wow, this really is a battle of champions.
Power-packed.
Yeah,
This
really
is real.
It's unbelievable. So you know the rules, but I'm going to repeat them anyway for those at home who may not. Hands on buzzers. I ask the questions. The first one to buzz in gets to answer the question. You must wait until I finish asking the question in order to answer it, and you can answer once I acknowledge you by saying your name. Each correct answer is worth a single point. Each incorrect answer detracts a point from your total. Best of 5 wins. Clear?
Also, best book out right now.
All right, that's it. I'm out. I quit.
You're out.
I quit.
That was, in fact, the first question.
Great Christmas gift.
But you jumped right to it. No, we have a real question. That was a rhetorical one. Question 1. Everything in America is now political. We know this. That's why we have this show. A new resistance theme frozen dessert is being sold by which Vermont company? Ed Henry.
Ben & Jerry's.
Ben & Jerry's. I don't believe you. To the tape we go.
Ben & Jerry's has a new ice cream flavor dedicated to the resistance. And like the resistance, it contains nuts. The company says that by purchasing this glop, you'll be supporting, quote, groups who are fighting President Trump's regressive agenda.
I had lunch with my friend Bob today, and he said, I bet you Ben & Jerry's is going to be a question. Bob, you were right.
There, Bob was right.
You're not allowed to get answers from your friends.
No, you're not.
He didn't have access.
Especially your clairvoyant friends. Those are the most effective friends.
He cheated.
In a way.
I feel like I should get
In
that
a way.
point.
Maybe get this one. Question 2. Which billionaire hit the campaign trail for Democrat Stacey Abrams recently and told the audience she has no plans on running for office herself? Abrams. Oh, Jillian.
Was it Oprah?
It was. I don't know. Let's go to the tape. I did pronounce her name, though.
I want to make it very clear to all the press, everybody, I'm not here because I'm making some grandstand because I'm thinking about running myself. I don't want to run, okay? I'm not trying to test any waters.
Uh-huh. So that was not a rally actually for Oprah. It wasn't just about her. It was about Stacey Abrams, whose name I mispronounced. And you were correct. Question 3.
Did I win the quiz?
You did. You won. You won.
The whole quiz?
Not the whole quiz.
Just the point.
It's one up, as they say in squash. 1-1. Right. Question 3. This is a multiple choice question. The left blames the president for a lot, but this is a new one. Which Trump-despising singer says the president of the United States makes her so enraged he drives her to overeat, specifically overeat pancakes? Is that A, Barbra Streisand, B, Madonna, or C, Cher? Who eats the pancakes?
Barbra Streisand.
Barbra Streisand is your guess. She's the pancake eater.
I found
on that
myself
list.
eating a lot, as I tweeted about. Every time this president said something that wasn't true, I just had to eat pancakes.
So is that from Good Morning America?
I don't know. It's from GMA. That's exactly right.
I saw it on Fox and Friends. I just want to be clear to a certain colleague who was mad at me last week for saying I saw one of the questions on the 5.
Yeah, we've got some
I stopped watching the 5. Only
exactly.
Fox and Friends.
By the way, I would make fun of Barbra Streisand, but I gained like 30 pounds during Obama's both terms, so I actually feel for her. Okay, question 4. Twitter pundits melted down over the weekend, that's nothing new, after the president climbed the stairs to Air Force One and tossed an item to the side before getting on the airplane. What was the item the president left behind? Was it A, try again, a MAGA hat, B, a bottle of Coca-Cola, or C, an umbrella?
An umbrella.
Ed Henry, you think it was an umbrella?
Absolutely.
I forgot it was multiple choice.
It was multiple choice.
It was pretty good.
Wow. It was indeed an umbrella. You know what? I think you're a good person anyway. It doesn't even matter the question.
I think you should give me a sympathy point.
I'm still...
Is that 2 or 3?
Okay, now the judges are saying that I screwed up and it's my fault, and I didn't say, hold on, here's, let me just explain this. And look, by the way, I'm not in charge of this show. It's got my name on it, but I don't have the bottom line. They're saying because you did not indicate it was a multiple choice question, it's going to 2-2 sudden death. That's what they're saying.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I'll take that because I was confused.
It's totally my fault. It's
So
completely my fault. But look, I don't make the rules. I merely read the teleprompter.
But I will lodge a protest. Just
okay, later with the judges. All right, here it is. Final question, sudden death. Yesterday, Boston Red Sox celebrated their World Series win with a parade through, of course, Boston. Everything was going fine until an overzealous fan damaged the championship trophy by hurling what at the team? Ed Henry.
Beer can.
Beer can.
Absolutely, 100%.
100% beer can.
They cheered, they climbed, and per tradition, they threw beer cans. The World Series trophy took a hit. A beer can benched the medal on one of the flags.
I'm going to blame the players because they're baseball players. They should be catching those beer cans.
That is actually a really good point. Ed Henry, you knew it was a beer can.
I'm a Yankees fan, so it was not a good week.
Of course,
I heard about
being
this.
Boston, it had to be a beer can.
Yeah, of course, and they were very sore winners. The manager of the Red Sox was trashing the Yankees this week. So
you're not a sore winner. You're a magnanimous one.
Nice job.
Jillian Turner, you're a great person.
I still think I should have won.
I kind of think that too, but he did win. So
you're the
you know what I
boss.
mean? We're not in charge. I'm not in charge.
We gave you one.
You got to look. I'm not going to get into
boss.
the rules.
If you really wanted me to win, I
kind of did, but you know what? The rule of law prevails on this show.
Available everywhere.
It's the judges, and to you, Ed Henry, yet another Eric Wemple mug commemorating Mr. Wemple's appearance on our show. Thank you both so much. That was fantastic. That's it for tonight's final exam. Pay attention to the news each week. Tune in every Thursday night to see if you can best our experts. We'll be right back after the break. Imagine if the U.S. government spent taxpayer money handing out cigarettes to school children. That would be grotesque, wouldn't it? Well, something similar has happened on a grand scale in tech. The Obama administration's Connected initiative urged schools to put gadgets in the hands of kids. Many school districts across the country went along, sending billions of dollars on computers. Did any of this improve the lives of children, help them to learn more? Of course not. It has become obvious that tech is addictive, both physically and mentally harmful. Kids need less screen time, not more. It does not help them learn. Top tech leaders know that, and that's why, as the New York Times just reported, Silicon Valley elites send their own kids to screen-free private schools. And yet these programs are still happening. Just like big tobacco, the tech monopolies have no problem addicting children to a product they know is so harmful they don't want their own families around it. The question is, will they ever have to pay for what they've done? We'll keep on that. That's it for us tonight. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 p.m., the show that is the sworn enemy of lying, pomposity, smugness, and groupthink. This show can be DVR'd if you know how that works, and we would recommend it. Good night from Washington. Sean Hannity, live from New York City.